Hello, this is Elder Tehila from the Coven of the Open Mind, and you're watching Coffeelosophy. Hail and welcome. Well, coffee philosophers, by now you all know that I like my coffee iced. But the topic this time couldn't be more hot. It's something everyone in the world seems to care about and has cared about for a very long time. The topic is soulmates. So you go ahead and grab your coffee and then we'll get started. So first of all, what is a soulmate? It would be pretty much impossible for me to cover every definition of soulmate that exists. It seems like everyone has their own interpretation of what it means to be a soulmate or have a soulmate. So when we talk about soulmates, we're going to try to talk about it from an objective standpoint, even though it very much is a personal subject that a lot of people have a lot of personal subjective feelings about. One definition of soulmate that is fairly universal, that most people can agree with, is that a soulmate is a person who completes you. It's a person who makes you feel whole. Many people believe that your soulmate is someone who completes you in every lifetime, so that you have the same soulmate across many lifetimes. Many people believe that you have just one soulmate somewhere out there in the world, and many others believe that you have lots of soulmates or that you could have multiple soulmates. So there's no one definition of what a soulmate is beyond a person who completes you. There's another phrase that many people will use. They call it a twin flame. I tried to look for the origin of the phrase twin flame, and I couldn't trace it to one individual source. I'm not really sure when it started to be used or who started using it. The term soulmate was first used in the early 1800s by an individual in one of his books. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but it became very popular in the subsequent years. And now everyone uses the term soulmate, even though we don't have a universal definition of what a soulmate is. So here we're going to try to come up with that universal definition. One of the first references to soulmates was written about by Plato, in which he described humans as having originally had 4 arms and 4 legs physically, and then being physically separated such that your goal in life is always to find your other half, your other 2 arms and 2 legs to go with your 2 arms and 2 legs. This just basically shows us that the idea of there being a person in this world who completes us is ancient. People have felt this way about their partners, about searching for partners for a very, very long time. There are many cultures that believe in soulmates. In Judaism, they believe that your soul is split into half before you're born, and half goes into one body and half into the other, and that you have to search for your other half while you're alive, and when you find it, you can come together and become one, and that's part of the purpose of your existence. In other cultures, there's no one person, but many people who might complete you, and people could be polyamorous and have multiple soulmates even at the same time. If we want to try to come up with an objective understanding of what a soulmate is, then we have to look at the nature of time itself. And the reason for that is because of what the soul is. The soul is transcendent. The soul is timeless. It's the part of you that continues to exist even when your life ends, when your physical body dies and begins decaying. The soul continues on. And the reason why the soul would have to continue living on is because energy can't be created or destroyed. Everything that physically exists has height, width, depth, and time. It takes up space and it exists for a length of time. That's what it means to physically exist. The part of you that is conscious, that is aware of the self, The part of you that is transcendent perceives of things in larger numbers of dimensions. You can perceive of things that have happened in the past, in the future, even if they haven't happened to you, even if they happened to someone else, you can still become aware of them. The imagination is a way of picking up on information that is outside of the scope of your physical existence. Some part of the human perception is greater than the sum of your physical parts. It picks up on more things. And that part of you can see into the timelessness that is inherent within the world. Now, we're doing a metaphysics series on our channel. So if you're interested in the metaphysics, you should check out that series because it gets really long trying to go into the physics behind why this is not as crazy as it sounds. Essentially, physical objects are bound by time. They must experience time. And yet, the little individual particles that make them up, the energy that makes them up, experiences the world in a timeless way. And so the universe is both timeless and time-bound. Reconciling the timelessness and the time-limited aspects of our universe has interesting consequences, logical consequences, and tells us things about the nature of, say, the soul, which is exactly what we need in this case. If on some level the universe is fundamentally timeless, then all of your lives, all of your incarnations are happening right now. The idea that things are separated by lengths of time, that the past happened before and the future hasn't happened yet, that notion is inherently flawed. It's inherently biased toward physical existence, toward the observation of the physical world. On the higher planes of existence, or in larger numbers of dimensions, however you want to say it, you find an effect where time doesn't pass at all. It just is. Everything that exists at the same time and in the same space, and that just, even though it doesn't make any sense, that's just how it works. If the past and the present and the future are all happening at once, then how do we have free will? Shouldn't everything that's in the future be predetermined if it's already happening? Well, yes and no. It's determinate and it's probabilistic at the same time, which makes absolutely no sense. There are many timelines our lives could take. There are many different paths we could walk, and we choose which ones we want to walk. But in a larger sense, we walk all of them, and all of these many paths are just as real as each other. In the objective universe, the one that we all experience together, the one that describes our collective experiences, there are some timelines that are more real than others. Let's say one person experiences a certain event and says, well, I drew on the chalkboard. I drew on it. But you look at the chalkboard and you can clearly see that it hasn't been drawn on. It was wiped down the previous day and nobody has drawn on it since. I mean, it's possible they drew on it and someone came along and cleaned it again, but nobody is saying, oh, I cleaned it this morning. So we can clearly see that this person's subjective memories of what happened don't match our objective memories of what happened. So they're probably seeing into an alternate timeline. And that doesn't make what they're seeing invalid. That timeline exists, but it's not the one that the rest of us experienced. The fact that there are many observers in our world, there will always be one timeline that is more real than the others, especially when it can be backed up and verified by objective facts, like, has the chalkboard been drawn on today? So there are subjective experiences, subjective memories, and there are objective ones as well. Let's talk about the significance of what it means that all of these different timelines are happening at the same time. If all of time is happening at once, and when a person dies, their physical form dies, and their soul enters that timeless space and is purely timeless, then they don't spend any time in between lives And yet they also spend an eternity in between lives. It feels like an eternity, but it's no time at all. People reincarnate immediately. People can reincarnate into the same time period and have multiple versions of themselves contained within different physical vessels. Looking at it like the soul is being split in half and put one half here and one half there doesn't really make sense. How do you split something that is beyond space, beyond time? The action of splitting it, even, is something that has to be done over time. So the notion of splitting a soul into parts is inherently mortal. It is inherently something a physical being is projecting onto something that is way more abstract than can be easily comprehended. If what you're doing is an action, then you have to physically exist to do it. So you can't split a soul. If you are reincarnated into multiple bodies at the same time, it's your entire soul in two separate vessels. What does all of that tell us about soulmates? It tells us a few things. You can reincarnate many, many times at the same time. There can be several of your soul walking around in different vessels. Is that version of you going to complete you? Well, why do we reincarnate? We reincarnate to learn lessons. So if you are reincarnated in one sense, in one lifetime to learn a particular thing, and then you reincarnate again, even if you're in the same time period, you could be there to learn something completely different, which might mean that your existence in both of those cases is incredibly different and has nothing in common. The underlying soul is the same, but the aspects of the ego, the little details that make you an individual person, are highly varied between one incarnation and another. So even if there are multiple versions of you walking around, that doesn't mean that those particular people are the ones who will complete you. When we talk about soulmates, we're talking about a person who fills in the gaps, who makes us feel whole. So there's no reason to believe that you are the best match for yourself. What this also tells us is it's very unlikely that there's one person out there in the world who you are meant to be with. You are changing. You are dynamic. Over time, you become a different person. You can meet someone who completes you in some senses, but maybe you're just not ready to be with them. Kind of like that notion of, this is the right person, but it's the wrong time. If I had met this person at a different time in my life, maybe we would have spent our lives together. Maybe you'll be friends, but maybe you're not compatible to be partners. This also tells us that you're not likely to be meeting the same person lifetime after lifetime. It can certainly feel like you've known someone for lifetimes when you meet someone and you're just like, wow, we just click. We just are meant to be together. It's like we already knew each other before we even met. It is possible for you to be with the same person from lifetime to lifetime. If both of you reincarnate into the same time periods repeatedly, then perhaps you're meant to be with each other from one lifetime to the next. But it's not a requirement. If one part of your soul is snuffed out of existence, say from demon possession, God forbid, then you'll feel that. It'll feel like a part of you is gone, is missing. It'll feel like a hole inside of you. That doesn't mean that there are not other soulmates out there who could complete you. It is very unlikely that there is only one person in the whole world who'll make you feel whole. In fact, our society models itself off of a need for having one partner at a time. It's very possible that you can't be completed by just one other person. It's almost ridiculous to expect an individual person to satisfy every single one of your needs. So consider that you might have multiple soulmates out there. You could potentially choose one or the other, or you could choose all of the above. And there's nothing wrong with either of those choices. Don't use the notion of feeling a connection with another person as an excuse to be in a bad relationship. I'm trying to address a pattern of behavior that I often see from victims of abusive relationships or unhealthy relationships, where they say, well, I would leave them, but they're my soulmate, or they're my twin flame, so I have to make this work. No, you don't. Your soul cannot be split in half. Even if that person is literally you in another body, that doesn't mean that you have to be with them or that being with them is even good for either of you. Relationships are about completing each other. That's true. That's why the nature of soulmates is so popular. But completing each other doesn't necessarily mean we are two halves of one soul in two separate bodies. And when we say you complete each other, this is what we mean. Both of you will bring different qualities to the table. Your values must be compatible. You should have some interests in common. And what you do well, your partner may not do well. And what your partner does well, you may not do well. So that together, you have all the bases covered. One of you should be good at making money. One of you should be good at basic survival needs. One or both of you. One of you should be able to keep a roof over your head and food in your bellies. One of you should be able to keep track of the emotional needs of the partnership, or both of you. One of you should be able to negotiate with the outside world and interface with society. So even if both of you are not good at that, one of you should be capable of doing it. The purpose of a relationship is to make yourself more functional, to enable yourself to survive more easily. If your relationship doesn't make your life easier, then you're doing it wrong. You don't need a spark. You don't need some magical connection to this person that transcends time and space. All you need is to complete each other. Say, here's what I do well, and find someone who does the things you don't do well, right? That is how you have a happy relationship. A soulmate is a person who completes you. They fill in the blanks in your skill set in a way that enables you both to be happier, healthier, more productive members of society. When you meet someone who is your soulmate, as long as you are self-aware, you'll know that they're your soulmate. Most people think someone is their soulmate because of transient reasons, insignificant things. Well, there's a spark. What does that mean, a spark? That you're sexually attracted to someone? I mean, that's important. In a relationship, you should be attracted to your partner, assuming you're not asexual. You should feel arousal when you look at your partner's physical form. That's true. But that's certainly not the most important factor. So many relationships fail because people don't understand how to prioritize things that are important. They don't sit down and just ask important questions right up front. Do you want to have kids? Do you want to have a family? Do you want to have a home? Do you want to live in a city or in the country? Do you agree with the politics of our nation today? How do you feel about things like global warming and recycling, and what are your values? If you don't have values in common, you're not going to get along. If you don't have similar life goals, you're not right for each other. You need to be in alignment with your partner. And if you're doing it right, you should be able to tell if someone is a good match for you within days. Ask them the big questions. What do you believe in? Are you religious? Are you spiritual? What are your values? These are the important things. Not, do you listen to the same music as me? Do you like watching the same TV shows? Maybe, are you willing to watch TV shows you don't like just so that we can spend time together? That's a value. You have to have values in common. Interests are less important. That's how you test and see if someone is your soulmate. You say to them, these are the qualities I bring to the table, and these are the things I'm not so good at. Do you do the things I'm not so good at well? What qualities do you bring to the table? That's how you know if a person completes you or not. And if you don't have the same values in common, you're not meant to be together. A person who doesn't want kids now is probably not going to want kids 10 years from now. Don't hold out hope. And if they do want kids 10 years from now, then they'll go find some other person who completes them. You can't be in a relationship with someone based on who you think they might be in the future. You have to be in a relationship with someone because of who they are right now. You have to accept them for who they are. And that means you have to know who they are, which means you have to have these conversations. Another question someone asked is, how do we attract our soulmates? If you want to be in a happy, healthy relationship where you feel like your partner completes you, then you need to yourself be a whole person. You need to be mentally healthy. You need to be physically well. You need to have habits that suit you. You need to be very aware of yourself and what your needs are and what your values are and all of the various things that go into having a partnership, like your love languages. If you are the kind of person who likes lavish gifts and that's how you feel loved, well, you might not be a good fit for a person who is less materialistic and who values quality time. Maybe you're the kind of person who likes to go off on your own and do your own thing, but then you come home and you have dinner and exchange gifts and share about your day, and then you go off and do your own thing again. Well, that's a different love language than someone who wants to be with their partner 24/7 all of the time. So you have to know what it is you need in order to feel loved, and that kind of requires you to love yourself, to know yourself, and to accept yourself for who you are. You can't be searching for a partner because you feel incomplete. That's the other part of this. A soulmate is a person who completes you. But by yourself, you should still feel like a whole person. You are not half of a soul. That doesn't make any sense. You are an entire soul. So act like it. Another person asked, do we all have soulmates? Do we all have people in this world who complete us? Yeah. Sometimes it'll be one person. Sometimes it might be many people. If you're very complex and dynamic, maybe you can't just get along with one individual other person. Maybe you need multiple people in your life. A relationship is about satisfying each other's needs in a productive, healthy way. That requires you to know what your needs are and to know what your ability to satisfy another person's needs are without you yourself becoming exhausted or used up. The last question someone asked here is, how do you accept any lessons or karma that your soulmate brings on? And it is true that if one person in a relationship does something to elicit some kind of karmic reaction from the universe or gets cursed in some way, that could propagate onto the other people in the relationship. But I would argue that if one person is prone to causing issues like that for themselves, then the person who completes them will be a person who is good at shielding, a person who is good at counterbalancing the effect of their bad karma. You should not feel like you are being made to suffer as a consequence of the actions of your partner. When you're in a healthy relationship with another person, you have a single objective. An obstacle for one partner is an obstacle for both partners, or more, or all of the partners if there's more than two. Okay, coffee philosophers, to bring this video to a close, let's do a bit of a summary. Souls are timeless. This means that there can be many versions of you in the world right now, or not. This means that you can have the same soulmate from one lifetime to the next, or not. What it also means is that souls cannot be split in half. So the idea that you are an incomplete soul, the idea that you have to go out into the world and find the one person that is the other half of your soul, makes no sense at all. Staying in a relationship with a person who is not good for you because they feel like they complete you, because they feel like the other half of your soul is not a good thing. Do not use the notion of soulmates or twin flames to avoid leaving bad situations. You can have multiple soulmates at multiple different times of your life. It could be the right person at the wrong time, and that still makes them the wrong person. You You have to focus on becoming a whole person on your own, on feeling happy and healthy day by day, and then you can have a happy, healthy relationship. When you do meet a soulmate, you should know right away. It should take you no time at all to know if that person is right for you or not. If it takes you months and months to know if a person is right for you, or years even, then you don't know your own needs and what you have to offer well enough in order for you to be able to be in a healthy relationship at all. If a person is the kind of person where it will take their entire lifetime to know and accept themselves for who they are, then they may not have a soulmate. If you are never a whole person on your own, you cannot be expected to complete another person. I know that it sounds backwards because if you're whole, then why do you need someone to complete you at all? Even a whole person still has flaws. No person is perfect, and there's no way to be perfect. So you just need to find which imperfections you can fix and fix them, and then identify which ones you can't. The notion of soulmates is something that has been so romanticized over the ages by society that it's very hard to think about it in the right way, in a healthy way. If you want your relationship to last, then you need to become a whole person. You need to know what your needs are and what your qualities are that can satisfy another person's needs. And then you need to have real conversations with the people you're interested in right away. Ask them, do we have values in common? Do we have beliefs in common? Can we walk this path of life together? And together, do we form a new entity that is more capable at surviving and thriving in this world than either of us would have been alone? If the answers to those questions are compatible, then you found your soulmate. And you should be able to tell right away. I'll finish the video with a personal anecdote. I have dated many people in my lifetime. I have dated multiple people at the same time. I've been monogamous, I've been polyamorous, and I never really felt like any of those people completed me. They were people that at the time we were both working on similar things, but neither one of us was really a whole person. Many of these people are still my close friends. Some of them are my best friends, and some of them I might never see again. When I met my husband, when I knew that he was meant to be my husband, I knew within 4 days. He flew out to visit from another state after we met online, and we went camping, and then we drove around and did some stuff together, and then we hooked up, and then within that period of time, we just knew. He canceled his flight home, and we have been together ever since. And I can't foresee a time where I will not want to be with my husband. We complete each other. The things he sucks at, I excel at doing, and the things that I suck at, he excels at doing. And I'm not talking about things I could get better at. I am not very physically well. I have issues. I have mental health and physical health issues. And he is incredibly healthy. There's nothing wrong with him at all. And I need his strength. And he needs my mind. And I am very good at having a job and making money and having a house and having a budget and all the things that he has never done well a day in his entire life. So together, we form a functional unit. Together, we are able to survive anything that life throws at us. That is a healthy relationship. And that's how I know he's my soulmate. We are meant to be together. That's what it feels like. But I could have been with other people. There were other people I also felt like I was meant to be with. Wrong people at the right time or right people at the wrong time. This is the one person who was the right person at the right time. And now that we are together, now that we've hand-fasted, our fates are bound. And we will walk the rest of this life together. Our paths will always converge. And that is what it means to have a soulmate. All of the qualities that I can't change about myself, the fact that I'm chaotic, that I tend to be destructive, that I struggle to nourish and help things grow, are things that he inherently does well. So we complete each other, and we're best friends, the best friends who ever were. And that is the foundation of love. That is the foundation of a successful relationship. I hope I have inspired all of you to become your best selves before you go out there and look for another person. Another person in this world might complete the parts of you that you struggle with, that you'll never be good at. But until you are 100% sure what those things are, and you've done all the work you can to improve yourself as a person, you're just not ready for a real relationship with someone. When you go into a relationship, both of you need to be ready. It's a wild ride. If you spend time focusing on being your best self, then when you meet the right person, it will be obvious. You'll know right away. You don't have to look. You don't have to seek. If you're meant to be together, you'll find each other. That's our video this time. It's a very heavy topic. I don't really like the videos where I have to tell people they're wrong about things. But many people don't think about soulmates in a very healthy way. So hopefully you'll think about soulmates in a healthier way now. You'll think about yourself in a healthier way in order to be ready to be a partner to another person. I wish all of you the very best, and from all of us here at the Covenant of the Open Mind, blessed be.